When training on screen configurations within the Onfinity system, you should begin by focusing on the Screen tab. This is where you will define the information for a new window. To create a new window, click on New Record. You should then toggle the record to activate it. You can enter the name of the window in the Name field. If this window is for a specific module, you must use a prefix in the name. For example, a good prefix is VA001. Therefore, my window name would be VA001_window. Following the naming convention, my window name is VA001_student master. Next, you can enter the display name in the Display Name field. This name is what the user sees in the user interface, so it should be simple and easy to understand without any prefixes. In this instance, the display name is Student Master. The active checkbox is used to activate or deactivate the window. If the window is still in the testing phase, you will use the Beta functionality checkbox. You must ensure that the menu link checkbox is ticked. Otherwise, the window will not be visible in the menu. The window type field is used to define what type of window you are creating. For a master window, select the Maintain option. For a transaction window, you must select the Transaction option. If the window is for viewing data only, you will select the Query option. Moving on, you will see the Record Type field. For a standard window, you should keep this field as User Maintain. If you do not want the record to be affected by the module download, then set it to Other Customization. Once that is done, you should save it. To create your first tab, navigate to the Tab section. To create a new tab, you will click on New Record and then toggle it. You can enter the name of your tab, for example, Student Information. You must now link the table to the tab. For this, you should first refresh the VA001 table. As mentioned earlier, tables will be linked with tabs, and the columns from those tables will be linked with fields. Once you are done, save it. The Create Field button will automatically create fields by linking all the columns from the VA001_student info table, which you have already linked to this tab. As soon as you click this button and confirm, the process will begin. Once the process is completed, you can go to the Field tab. You should now be able to see all the fields that were created automatically. However, if you are using an existing standard table to create a tab, you will not use this button. In that situation, you would create the fields manually, because the table would have many fields, and you would only need to use some of them. If you use the automatic button, it will create all of the fields. This can cause issues if any of those fields are mandatory, but you are not displaying the field on the user interface. In that case, you have to create the field manually. To create a field manually, you must first click on New Record. You should enter the name of the field here and bind the corresponding column in the column field. Now that the window has been created, the tab has been added, and the field has been created under this tab, you should create a menu for the window. To do that, first search for Menu Configuration. You can click on New Record and then toggle it. In the Name field, you will enter the name used to search for and open the window. The menu name is Student Master. You must select the action type as Window and then bind your screen, which is VA001_student master. Once you are done, save it. After you have created the menu, you will provide access to your window for a specific role. To do this, go to Screen Configuration and then select the Access tab. You will simply tick the Read and Write checkboxes for the role you want to grant access to. For example, if you want to grant access to the Vision Enterprise Admin, you would tick the checkboxes and save. Only a user with this role will be able to open and use this window. Now, you should change your role because you are currently logged in with the System Administrator role. To view this window, you will need to log in with the Vision Interfaces Admin role. You can do this by opening a new tab. Once you have changed your role to Vision Interfaces, you can search for your window, which is Student Master. You should be able to see that your window has loaded. This is a simple window, but you can improve it by using the many functionalities available at the window, tab, and column levels. We will use those functionalities one by one to understand how they work. Let's begin with the column level functionality by going to the database schema. and starting with data validation. As I mentioned in the beginning, this field is used to show valid data according to the validation. To create a validation, first zoom into the window of data validation, then click on New Record. Enter the name of the validation with a prefix, or you can use it without the prefix. For example, VA001_employee. Now enter your SQL code under the code field. You can see in the partner file, all the partner's records are available in this field. But now I want only the records where the employee checkbox is true. So I find the query code according to my requirement. C_B partner dot is employee equals Y. This statement means you want the record from C_B partner table where is employee checkbox is true. Once you have done that, save it. You should then bind this validation in this field or column and refresh it to VA001_employee. Now save it and reset the cache. Now you should refresh the link. After you click on New Record, you will see that only the records with the employee checkbox as true are visible. The next steps are to use mandatory logic and read logic. For example, you can set the mandatory logic to it at VA001_age at greater than 5. This will make the partner field mandatory when the value in the age column is greater than 5. You can use the same approach for the read-only logic. For example, you can make the field read-only if the age value is less than 5. Now you can save it. Then, reset the cache and refresh the link. When you open the student master and select New Record, you will see that if you set the age to 3 and save it, the partner field becomes read-only because 3 is less than 5. If you edit the age from 3 to 13 and save it, the field becomes mandatory and will display a mandatory error. Because of this, you must select a value in the field. After a value has been entered, the record will be saved. I hope this clarifies the differences between mandatory logic and read-only logic. Next, we will move on to the column SQL field. In this field, you can enter an SQL query based on your requirements to automatically fetch the data you want. This is used to create a virtual column, which will not sync with the database. To understand how this works, we will create a new column element. You must now go to the column dictionary and click on New Record. You should enter your new column element with a prefix and then save the record. Next, go to the database schema and click on New Record. You can refresh the column element field and search for your new column element, which is age identity. Now, you should select your reference, which in this case is a string. Once you have done that, you will set the length to 70 and then save the record. If you were to sync this column, it would become a normal text type field. Since the goal is to create a virtual column, you should not sync it. After saving the record, go to the SQL column field and enter your SQL query. This query should be based on the data you want to fetch. For example, you could write a query that works based on the age column, such as case when VA001_age is less than 40. Then young student, else old student end. Based on this query, the age identity field will display young student when the value in the age field is less than 40. If the value is 40 or greater, it will show old student. Now you should save this record. When you validate this table, you will see that the age identity column is now a virtual column. Next, you must create a field for this column. You should click on New Record and select your column, which is VA001_age identity. You can then save the record, reset the cache, and refresh your link. You will now see that the age identity field displays young student because the age is 20, which is less than 40. If you set it to 50 and save the record, the age identity field will become old student. The data will automatically update based on the values in the age identity field. This is how the virtual column works. You can also enter an SQL query starting with select. If your query begins with select, you must use brackets. The first bracket should be at the beginning of the select statement, and a closing bracket should be at the end. Always remember that all SQL keywords like select, from, where, and case must be written in capital letters. This is because they are case sensitive, and if the keywords are not capitalized, it will create issues. To create another functionality, you must click on New Record and then select the reference type as button. This will display a checkbox called Is Link. When you tick the Is Link checkbox, the button will appear as a hyperlink in the user interface. Ticking the Is Link checkbox will also make another option available, which is the Right Panel Link. So, when you tick both Is Link and the Right Panel Link checkboxes, the button will not be directly visible on the user interface. Instead, it will appear at the top of the Right Action panel. In short, ticking Is Link will make the button appear as a hyperlink. Ticking both Is Link and Right Panel Link will make the button appear at the top of the Right Action panel. Moving on, the next functionality we will cover is default logic. For this, you should select the gender column. You will then bind the search key of genders and the reference key, for example, for male. Here, you want the gender field to be filled with the value male by default whenever you open this window. Once you have done this, you should save it, reset the cache, and refresh the link. After you search for Student Master and click on New Record, you will see that the gender field has the default value as male. If you pass the search key as F, as you can see, when you click on the record, the default value for gender is now female. The next section to understand is tab-level functionality. For tab-level functionality, you must go to the screen configuration and select the tab. The first option here is the default tab layout. As you will see, whenever you open the Student Master window, it will open in a multi-row view by default. To change this, you can set it to a single-row view, save it, and reset the cache. You will now see that by default, the window opens in a single-row view. The next option is Sequence, which represents the tab sequence. For example, if you create a new tab, the sequence number for that tab would be 20. For this, you need to create one more tab, which will be the child tab of the current tab. To create this child tab, its table and column must first be created. After that, you will be able to create the tab and field. Creating tables, columns, tabs, and fields can be a lengthy process. For that reason, we will now use a shorter and more efficient method, which is possible through the Screen Composer. You should search for the Screen Composer. With the help of the Screen Composer, you can create both the table and tab as well as the columns and fields at the same time. To create a new tab in this window, you must search for your window here, which is VA001_Student Master. You must now click on the New Tab option. A pop-up window will appear for you to enter the name of your tab, such as address information. You should then bind an existing table or create a new one. To create a new table, you will define the database table name with a prefix, for example, VA001 address. You will then enter the name of the table without a prefix, which is address. To make this a child tab of student info, you will select your parent tab from the Parent tab field and click on OK. The system will then automatically create 9 default columns and fields at the same time. After that, you will create more fields as needed using references. You can see that all the references are available on the left panel. You can create more fields based on your requirements using a simple drag-and-drop process. You will see this as I create my new column and tab. You should wait for the process to complete. Now you can see this Address Information tab is created successfully. And also, you can see these fields are also created. Now you can see this small icon. This icon indicates that this is a child tab of our first tab. Then select this tab, and you can see the tab level is 1. It represents that this tab is the child tab of student information. If this tab level is 2, and the student information tab level is 1, then that means this is the child tab of tab level 1, and so on. There are also the Advanced tab and Accounting tab. The Advanced tab indicates that it contains advanced functionality. This tab with advanced functionality will only be displayed if the checkbox named Advanced Tab Enable is checked in the preferences. Here's an example to show you how this works. You should click on Settings and then Preferences. When the Show Advanced tab checkbox is ticked in Preferences, the tab becomes visible on the user interface. The same applies to the Accounting tab. If the Accounting tab checkbox is ticked in the Preferences, then that tab will only be visible on the user interface. The Has Tree checkbox is used to create a tree-like structure in your tab. To do this, you will need to create 3 fields. The first is Name, the second is Description, and the third is the Is Summary checkbox. Once you have created these fields and selected the Has Tree checkbox, you can go to the Tree Configuration window. Click on New Record, enter the name of your tree in the Name field, and bind your table in the Table view. Next, select the type as Others and click on All Nodes. Save the record, and then click on Process Now. You will now see your tree-like structure is visible on the tab. As you can see in the menu configuration, this is how you use Has Tree to create a tree-like structure. Now go to the Screen Composer. We will add more columns of different reference types. I will add one date reference type and enter the DB column name, VA001_admission date. Click OK. Now for the address field, I will use the reference type, location. I will use the standard address column, which is this one. Click OK. Select this column. When you create a parent-child relationship between 2 tabs with the Screen Composer, you need to manually sync this parent column, the Parent ID column, because all the other columns are synced automatically. I will show you that when I validate the table, you will see that this field is not validated in the database. My apologies, I misspoke. It is not seen in the database. To fix this, I will also change the data access level to Client plus Organization. Then, go to the VA001_ student info _ ID column and sync it. As you can see, because this is the parent reference column, the checkbox for True Parent Link column is selected. Now refresh the link. You can now see that the Address Information tab is visible. Go to this tab and click on New Record. In this field, you'll see that no parent record is visible. This is because in the Parent tab, the Identifier checkbox is not selected. I will now select this checkbox on the student name. After saving it and resetting the cache, you can refresh the link. Find a new record and enter the student name. The age is 20, the gender is male, and then you can save it. Now go to the Address Information tab. The identifier helps to directly fetch parent data into the Child tab. You can see that the name Ashwani will directly appear in the Child tab. The next topic is the Link column. A link column is used only when a table has more than one parent. For example, the parent of this tab is the Header tab, which is student information. But if this same tab or table is used in another window, where it has a different parent tab, you will not use a parent link column. As you can see, I use this parent ID, and here, the parent link checkbox is true. In a case with multiple parents, we will not select this checkbox, because the parent link column is selected for only one parent record. So, in that situation, we will use a link column, which is a functionality available in the tab. Here, you will use the link column. You just select the parent ID of your parent tab, and it will function the same as the parent link. For example, I will use parent link here and save it. Now, I will unselect the parent link checkbox and the mandatory checkbox. I will then save it, reset the cache, and refresh the link. Select this record and go to the Child tab. Click on New Record. As you can see, it will work the same way as the parent link. The next topic is Job. The Job field indicates a unique process or report for a window or a tab that will execute after you click on the print icon. This is the print icon. If no process is defined, then the print icon will be disabled. As you can see, no job is defined in the Job field, which is why the print option is disabled. If I bind a job like this one and save it, the print icon on the tab will be enabled. However, you should not bind just any random job here, as every tab and field has its own specific job or process. Therefore, do not bind any random process or job here. Now, let's understand display logic. For example, I will select a field from the header, such as gender. I will now bind a display logic here based on the gender column of the header tab. At the rate VA001_gender at the rate equals M. This means that the tab is visible only when the gender is male. Otherwise, this tab is not visible. Now, you can save it, reset the cache, and refresh the link. Currently, there is no record. If the gender is not male, this tab is not selectable. If I select the gender field as male, you can now go to the Address tab. If I select it as female again, this tab will be frozen. Now, let's understand the read-only checkbox. This checkbox is used to make a tab read-only. A user cannot perform any task on it or insert a new record. When this checkbox is selected, the user cannot create a new record, which means the new record option will be disabled. Next is Auto New Record. This is used when I want this window to open by default in new mode. You can set a limit on the number of records on your tab by using the record limit. Read-only logic works the same as the read-only logic at the column level. Here, you can bind any condition, and the tab will act according to that condition. The next topic is commit warning. The commit warning is used to display a warning when saving a record. You can enter any warning text here, and it will be displayed exactly as it is when you save the record. For example, are you sure you want to save it? Save it, reset the cache, and refresh the link. When you try to save this new record, you will see a pop-up asking, "Do you want to save this record?" Or, "Are you sure you want to save it?" This is the same commit text that I entered into the commit warning field. The next topic is include tab. If a user wants to show the child tab's record along with the parent tab's record, they can use this option. For example, because student information is the parent tab to address information, I will select address information as the included tab in the student information tab and save it. After saving, I will reset the cache and refresh the link. This is how the included tab works. The next topic is SQL where. This field is used to fetch data according to the SQL where clause that you pass here. You can pass any SQL query based on your requirements. The next topic is SQL order by. For example, I will set this SQL order by to created DESC and save it. Now, the most recently created record will be displayed first, followed by the other records. You can see the Ashwani record was created first, and then the others. If I change the order to ascending, this record will be moved past Ashwani, and Ashwani will now be the second record. You can apply SQL order by to any field in either ascending or descending order. The Set Card View button is used to create a card view in this tab. We will understand this card view later when we cover the layout topic. Next, let's look at the Settings section. You can see some additional functionalities here. Hide tab name is used to hide the name of the tab. For example, the name of this tab is Student Information. If you do not want the tab name to be displayed, you can select this checkbox, and it will be hidden. Reset Layout is used to reset the layout of the tab. When you jump from one tab to another, it resets the layout of the previous tab. Hide Card Toggle is used to hide the card view icon. Hide Grid Toggle is used to hide the grid toggle icon. Hide Record Navigation will hide the navigation buttons, which are the downward and upward buttons. If you select this checkbox, those navigation buttons will be hidden. Hide Single Toggle is used to hide the single toggle icon. If you select the Hide Single Toggle checkbox, it will also be hidden. The Show Filter panel will make a filter panel visible by default on this tab when you select this checkbox and save it. Now, to do this, you have to bind some columns in the filter panel. Go to the Filter option, select the column, set the selection sequence to 1, and save it. Now, you can see the age field is displayed in the Filter option. The filter panel is only part of the grid mode. You can see the filter panel is visible, and the field in the filter panel is age, because I selected the Selection Column checkbox. Now let's understand the different functionalities available at the field level. I will select the age field in the name field. Enter the name of the field, and then bind your column in the column field. The active checkbox is used to activate or deactivate the record. Search screen is used to bind an info tab or info window here. When your reference type is search, you can bind your search window according to your needs. We will understand how to create this info window or search screen at a later time. By default, the record type is user-maintained. However, if you want to ensure this field is not affected after a module download, you can set it as Other, Customization. Understanding field sections. Now we will look at field sections. A field section is used to group multiple fields together. For instance, if I want to group the fields for percentage, business partner, and gender into one field section, I would select the first field. Then I will bind it to a field section, such as additional information, and save it. Now you can see that these three fields are grouped under one section called Additional Information. These fields are only visible when you click on Show More. If you don't want the user to have to click Show More, you should select the field. Then, mark it as Field Group Default and save it. Now, after you reset the cache and refresh the link, you will see that the percentage and business partner fields are visible by default without having to click on Show More. All other fields remain hidden until you click Show More. If you want percentage and business partner in one group and partner and gender in another group, you will need to select the partner field. Then, bind it to another field group, for example, address details, and save it. Now you can see that under Additional Information, percentage and business partner are visible. Under address details, partner and gender are visible. When you want to change the name of a field in address information, and the current name is not user-friendly, you should untick the Centrally Maintained checkbox. After that, you can change the name, for example, to Student, and then save it. If you do not untick the Centrally Maintained checkbox before changing the name, it could affect the database column name. Always remember to untick Centrally Maintain and then change the name as required. Displaying checkbox. This checkbox determines if the field is visible on the user interface. If you untick it and save, a field like Student will not be visible on the user interface. Here is how you use the read-only checkbox. This checkbox is used to freeze any particular field. For example, to make a field read-only, you will select this checkbox and save it. The field is now read-only, so the user cannot edit it. Action group. An action group is used to group buttons. If a button's type is action, it will go into the action group. If it's for navigation, it will be placed into the navigation group. This functionality works similarly to field grouping, but the visual display is different, as button groups do not appear like field sections. Display logic. Display logic is used to hide or show a field based on a specific condition. For example, for the partner field, you can set the display logic as at VA001_gender = M. This means that the field will only be displayed if the gender is male. Now reset the cache and refresh the link. If the gender is female, the partner field is not displayed. If the gender is male, the partner field is displayed. Display length. The display length controls how much space a field occupies. For example, a length of 5 will occupy 1 cell, a length of 10 will occupy 2 cells, and a length of 30 will occupy 4 cells. You can adjust this setting to fit your layout. Let's understand the encrypted option. For sensitive fields, such as a password, you should use this checkbox. First, add a string type field. Then, use an existing column named password. After that, select the encrypted checkbox and save your work. The password will now be hidden and will appear masked when entered. Now, let's understand the same line option. This functionality is used to display a field on the same line as the field before it. For example, you can select the active field and mark the same line checkbox, and it will be placed right after the password field. Now, let's understand default focus. This functionality is used to set the focus on a particular field when a new record is opened. For example, you can set the default focus on the student name field. Now, when you click on New Record, your cursor will automatically be in the student name field. Now, let's understand sequence. This functionality defines the order of fields. For example, the tenant field is 10, the organization field is 20, and so on. Now, let's understand multi-row sequence. This is used for the grid view, and you can set it easily within the Screen Composer. To increase the width of the grid, you will use the column width. For example, you can set the column width of the student name to 400. After you save, the grid cell will be wider. You can do the same for the partner column. Set the column width to 250, save your work, and then reset the cache. The default column width is 100, but you can increase this as needed. Now let's understand reference override. This functionality is used to override reference types at the field level, but it will not affect the database level. For example, for the business partner field, you can override the type from table direct to search. Once you refresh the link, an info window will open, allowing you to search and select a record. Now let's understand mandatory override. This functionality is used to make a field mandatory at the UI level, even if it is not mandatory in the DB. To do this, you will select the field set mandatory override to yes, and then save your work. Next, we can understand field only, heading only. If I tick heading only, then only the label is visible. The field itself is not shown. If I tick field only, then the label is hidden, and only the field is visible. If you don't want a business partner to appear in the multi-row grid view, the grid view being referred to, set multi-row displayed to no and save. Tab index controls the order in which you navigate between tabs. For example, if you create a button of a preference field type like this one and name it VA001_address button, and then click OK. In the window composer, when creating a button reference, issues can sometimes occur, so you may need to refresh the link. Next, go to the Screen Composer and search for your screen, for example VA001_studentmaster. You should see that the address button has been created successfully. This section regarding filling section will be removed. Now select the button and set the tab index to 1, then save. The tab index is set to 1 because the intention is to navigate from student information to address information. If you have another tab and want to navigate to it, set the tab index to 2, understanding that the tab sequence starts with the first tab at 0, the second tab at 1, and the third tab at 2. Therefore, to navigate to the third tab, the tab index is set to 2. However, for the current tab, the tab index is 1. Save the settings and then set the action to move to tab. Reset the cache and refresh the link. Now when you click the address button, note that one more step is required. On the column level for navigation buttons, you must select the action checkbox. Also, select the Always Updatable checkbox. Without selecting the action checkbox, the button will not function for navigation. Now reset the cache and refresh the link. First, complete the mandatory fields and save the record. Then, when you click the address button, it should navigate to the Address Information tab as demonstrated. If the action is set to open as dialog box and saved, it will not directly navigate to the Address tab. Instead, when the Address button is clicked, a pop-up window will appear displaying the address information. That explains how the action field functions. The next item is default logic, which you can also configure. For example, if the default logic for gender was set to F at the column level, but you now want to override it at the field level, override it by setting default logic to M. Save the changes and reset the cache. Now, when new record is clicked, the gender value will default to male, because the default logic was set at the field level, overriding the setting at the column level. Expressions or conditional logic can also be applied in the default logic field. Consider the admission date field as an example. Let's identify the location of the default logic field. As you can see, in the Admission Information tab, the admission date field initially displays 00-00-0000, representing a null value. Now, to set the current date as the default in the admission date field, you can input the following logic. VA001_admission date equals to SYS date. Save the changes. With this logic implemented, when new record is clicked, the current date will automatically populate the admission date field. Similar logic or expressions can be used as default values based on your specific requirements. Zoom window enables the zoom option for a field. For example, currently, when the three dots are clicked, the zoom option is disabled. To enable it, bind the zoom window of the field to VA001_student_master. Save the changes and reset the cache. Refresh the link, then scroll through the tab. Now, when the three dots are clicked, the zoom option is enabled. Clicking on it will zoom in to the student master record, as intended. The copy checkbox allows a field's content to be copied. Let us now cover the line break feature. A line break is used to break the current line or to move a field to the next available line. For example, consider the address field. If you want this field to appear on the next line, you would then click on Break Line, and it will shift to the next line. The Show Icon option is used to bind an icon to a specific field. For example, if you select the student name field, then tick the checkbox for Show Icon, and then bind an image such as a user icon, you will see that this icon is now bound to the student name field. You can bind icons to all of these fields in a similar way. Let us now cover the cell space feature. For example, if you want the gender field to appear in the second cell instead of the first, meaning you want the first cell to remain blank, then you would select the gender field, set the cell space value to 1, and save it. As you can see, gender is now shifted to the second cell. If you set the cell space value to 2, then the gender field will be placed after 2 cells. Let us now cover the display width feature. For example, let us take the address field. Suppose you use the comment reference type. You will notice that the current layout does not appear optimal for our desired sequencing, and the existing field order is not ideal. Let us first adjust the sequence. We aim to place organization at this position, student name at this position, followed by partners and technician. You will now observe a significant empty space between partners and password. To effectively utilize this space, you should select the comment field and then set its display width value to 2. This action will cause the field to span 2 rows, resulting in an improved visual layout. Save it. If you want to set the display width value to 3, it will then cover 3 rows. For example, even if this field were outside the current field section, if you select the comment field and then set its display width value to 3, it will display in this manner. Now it appears better. Save it. You can sequence your fields according to your needs or the user's preference. Perform the sequencing in this manner. This is how sequencing is handled. There is another method to sequence fields, which involves using the Field Sequence tab located within the Parent tab. For example, you would navigate from Tab to Field Sequence. This method, however, is a bit more difficult. Therefore, sequencing fields via the Screen Composer is the best option. Now, I will bind an icon to the Organization field too. Save it and replace the location. Let us now understand how to create these images or icons. To do this, you will first click on New Record. Then you should enter the desired image name. For the font name, you can use icons from Font Awesome 4.7. For example, if you want a specific icon, you simply copy its class from Font Awesome and paste it into the font name field. For instance, enter the name FreeCamp and then save it. Next, go to Screen Composer and refresh the image field. Now, select your image from this location. For example, choose FreeCamp and then save it. You can now observe that the selected icon is bound to the organization field. Let us now cover Style Logic, which is used to decorate your button or label. For example, if you select the reference type as Label, you will use a standard label column. To show this label on screen, you must untick the Centrally Maintained checkbox. You will now enter the label name or the display text into the command field. For instance, you could enter Student Information. Next, you can apply some HTML styling here. For example, you might set the color to green and the font weight to bold. As you can see, the Student Information label, which is the text passed in the command field, is now visible in green. You can also verify this in the UI after resetting the cache. As you can see, this is the student name label type. You can also increase the font size by using HTML styling, specifically by adding the property font size with a value of 18 pixels. Remember to add a semicolon and then save it. This action will increase the label size. If you want to apply styling on a button, you can also use the HTML style field. To do this, simply select any field or column and then apply your HTML styling in the HTML style field. Now, style logic is used to apply styling on a particular field, but only when a specific condition is met. For example, for the student name field, you can apply style logic based on the gender field. You will then select the student name field and enter the following style logic. At VA001 underscore gender at equals M, question mark color colon blue comma, at VA001 underscore gender at equals F, question mark color colon pink. This same logic should then be applied to both the student name and gender fields. After this, you will reset and refresh the link. You will now observe the results. If you select gender as female, then both the student name and gender fields will appear in pink. Similarly, if you select gender as male, both fields will display in blue because the style logic was defined to set the font color to blue for the male gender. If you select gender as other, the color will then be red. If it's not working, make sure you use the right search key you pass in the column level as it is case sensitive. Next, we will cover length. You can override your field's length using logic and also apply read-only logic. This works consistently at both the field level and the column level. You bind any mandatory and read-only logic here, and the field will then behave according to this logic. You can also override the callout. To do this, you check the callout checkbox and bind your callout code here. The header panel item is used when you bind your header panel at the tab level. Then, you check this checkbox and bind your header item sequence here. We will understand this in more detail later. Next, we will cover the filter option. As described earlier, if this checkbox is checked, the field will be displayed on the filter panel. This concludes the functionality available at the field level, tab level, and column level. This functionality can be used to customize your window. There are several functionalities available on the Screen tab. Navigate to the Screen configuration window. Some fields were not covered previously, so let's begin with those now. The first field is window width. This field lets you adjust the window size. When you bind a tab panel to the window, you'll need to adjust the window's dimensions. The typical size for the window area is 75. This means the central portion of the window is set to 75, with the remaining area taking up 25. To set your desired window size, you must enter a number ranging from 0 to 75. Attempting to save a record with a number exceeding 75, like 80, will result in an error. The error is displayed as value of window width must be between 0 to 75. Therefore, it's important not to input a number greater than 75. Next is composite view. This checkbox functions similarly to an included tab, but there's a key difference. It shows the child tab directly below the parent tab. This is specifically for parent and child relationships. For instance, the composite view checkbox is ticked, and the changes are saved. Then the cache is reset and the link is refreshed. Focusing on the student master, the parent tab is student information, and its child tab is address. Consequently, the address tab appears beneath the student information tab. If another tab exists as a child of address information, then navigating to the address tab would reveal that tab, the child of address information, below the address information tab. Next is the copy screen button. This button lets you create an exact duplicate of the current window, preserving the screen design and the existing fields. To use it, click the Copy Screen button. A pop-up window will appear, allowing you to select the specific window you want to copy. After selecting the desired window, click OK. The system will then automatically generate a copy of that window. Now, within the Settings field group, there are a few checkboxes. The first checkbox is Hide Tab Name. This Hide Tab Name option exists at the tab level too, but it applies only to that specific tab. Ticking the Hide tab. Name checkbox hides the name of that tab. However, at the screen level, ticking the Hide tab name checkbox and saving the changes will, after resetting the cache and refreshing the link, hide the tab names on both screens. The tab names are no longer visible at the top. Next is Hide Toolbar. This checkbox hides the toolbar on the screen. Ticking this checkbox, saving the changes, resetting the cache, and refreshing the link will result in the toolbar no longer being visible on the screen. Next is Hide Action Bar. This checkbox hides the right action panel from the window. Ticking this checkbox will cause the system to hide the right action panel from the screen. Now next is Landing Page. If you are binding a widget to the screen, a landing page is needed. To designate a landing page, simply tick the Landing Page checkbox and save the changes. Reset the cache and refresh the link. This is now a landing page. You can now attach your widget to this student master. Click on the Edit option, and from there, you can drag and drop your widget onto the screen. Next is Show Dependent Record in Detail. When the Composite View checkbox is ticked, the tab that appears under the Parent tab will be visible only in a single view. In Multiview, that tab will not appear under the Parent tab. This checkbox is used in such cases. Now, navigating to the tab and toggling this record reveals almost all the fields covered. There is one checkbox remaining, Order tab. This checkbox is for creating an Order tab. Ticking this checkbox makes two fields visible, Order column and Included column. The system will display all the integer type columns in the Order column field. For example, Age is an integer type column, which is why only the Age field is visible under the Order column. The value of the selected column will automatically update when the user moves the column up or down. Consider the Field Sequence tab. The Field Sequence tab is known as the Order tab. Adjusting the fields from top to bottom automatically updates the field in the Order column. Next is the Included column. The system shows all columns with a reference set to yes or no, or all checkbox reference type columns are available here. The active checkbox is present in that window, so only the active checkbox is visible under the Included column. If an included column is defined, it determines whether the column is active in the ordering process. The column value will automatically update to Y or N, or active or inactive. When the user moves the field from left to right, as seen in the field sequence, when we want to display a field, we swap it from the left box to the right box. Automatically, the Display checkbox is set to True, because on the Field Sequence tab, the Included column is selected as Displayed. The Displayed checkbox is automatically updated by the system. Now, in the Settings field section, there's Hide Field Group From. If you want to prevent a particular field section from appearing directly on the window, you can hide it using this option. Select the Partners field and bind the field section as Action, then save the changes. We need one more field section, so select the active checkbox and bind its field section as Add Task. After saving the record, go to the user interface, reset the cache, and refresh the link. Navigate to the Student Master window. Here you will see both field sections visible on the screen, namely, the Action field section and the Add Task field section. If you select the Student Information tab, you can see that the Hide Field Group field value is currently 0. Now, if you want the Action and Add Task field sections not to be displayed directly on the user interface, you can hide both field sections by setting the Hide Field Group value to 1. Then save the changes. Reset the cache and refresh the link. Now you'll observe that both field sections are no longer directly visible on the screen. When you click on the Additional Information option, these field sections become visible on the user interface. If you want to display the Action field section directly on the user interface, but you don't want to display the Add Task field section, then change the value of Hide Field Group from 1 to 2 and save the changes. Reset the cache and refresh the link. You will now see that the action field group is visible directly on the user interface, but the Add Task Field section is not visible because the Hide Field Group value is set to 2. This means field section number 2 is hidden, since the first field section's value is 1 and the second field section's value is 2. If there's a third field section and you want to hide it while displaying the first and second field sections, then set the Hide Field Group value to 3. This ensures the third field section is not directly visible on the screen, and the first two are. To view the third, or in this case, the second field section, click on the Additional Information option. Only then will the hidden field section be visible. We also have another functionality related to the button. If you select the Address button, the action selected is Open tab as dialog. This means that if you click on the Address button, the Address tab will appear as a dialog box. We have another functionality called Action Parameters. The Action Parameters field is only visible when you select the action type as Move to Tab or Undo and Move to Tab, or if you haven't selected any action type in the Action field. If you select the action as Move to Tab, the Action Parameters field becomes visible. Through Action Parameters, you can bind certain parameters that will determine how the button behaves when it navigates to a specific tab. For instance, if you set the action type as Move to Tab, and you observe the difference, reset the cache, and refresh the link. When you click on the Address button, it will act as a normal button and simply open the Student Master window. However, if you pass some parameters, the button will behave according to those parameters. For example, consider these parameters. Left curly bracket is Hide Grid Toggle. True. Is Hide Card Toggle. True. Right curly bracket. Based on these parameters, when you click the Address button, it will hide the Grid Toggle button or icon and the Card Toggle icon. Save the changes. Reset the cache. Refresh the link. Open the Student Master window. Now, if you click on the Address button, you will see that when the button navigates to the Address tab, the Card Toggle icon and Grid Toggle icon are not visible. If you toggle this record, you'll notice that no Grid Toggle button and no Card Toggle button are available. That's how the action parameters work. They determine the button's behavior, so you can bind action parameters according to your specific needs. There's also another functionality related to buttons. Buttons allow you to hide the right action panel and create a button that replicates any of the functionalities from the panel. To achieve this, we can create another button and copy the functionality of any of the available options in the right action panel. Currently, there are several options available in the right action panel. Our system now has the functionality to replicate any of these options with a button. Let's consider an example. Suppose you want to create a button that has the copy record functionality. As you can see in the right action panel, the copy record functionality is available. Now we'll replicate this functionality on a button. To do this, let's create a field of the button type. From the left side, select the button reference, drag the button, and drop it where desired. Name this button V, a 001 underscore copy button, with the name displayed as copy records. Save the changes. As previously mentioned, the button reference isn't created directly, so the link needs to be refreshed. Search the screen. You will see the copy record button has been created successfully. Now, go to the column settings. The length of the button needs to be adjusted because a default logic needs to be bound. Therefore, the button length shouldn't be 1. Increase the button length from 1 to 3 and save the changes. Here, a reference key, which is a standard reference key, needs to be bound. Directly bind underscore window action. Save the changes. Next, the search key of that particular right action functionality needs to be bound, or in this case, the copy record functionality that we are replicating. Therefore, the search key of copy record needs to be bound in the default logic. Click on Zoom to find the search key of your copy record. Navigate to List Validation, and you'll see all those search keys are available. To replicate this functionality on the button, copy the search key and paste it into the field default logic. Save the changes. One important detail is the Action checkbox. For this button, we don't want to check the Action checkbox. The Action checkbox is only checked for navigation buttons, specifically buttons used to navigate from one tab to another. Otherwise, you don't need to check the Action checkbox for this type of button. Reset the cache, refresh the link, go to the Student Master window. Under the Action Field section, we now have the Copy Record functionality. Clicking on it will copy the record. That is how you can replicate the functionality of Right Action panel items on a button. That's how this button or this functionality works. Our last functionality is the search screen, which you can find on the Field tab, specifically the search screen. When a reference type is set to search, the system automatically generates an info window. For example, this business partner field, it's normally of the table direct type, but we are overriding the field reference, changing it from table direct to search. You can see we simply override its reference. Therefore, when I navigate to the Student Master window and click on the designated icon, a business partner info window appears. The system creates this info window automatically. If you need to display records in the info window based on your specific needs, you can use the Quick Search window to create a search screen, which is also known as an info screen. Simply zoom into the Quick Search window. For instance, if you click on the three dots and select the Zoom option, you'll be taken to the Quick Search window. To create a new Quick Search, which we can also call an info window, just click on New Record. Enter your search screen name or your info window name. As an example, I'm entering the name VA001_B partner and the value as VA001_BP. Now select the table you want to retrieve the data from. In this case, it's C_B partner. Next, enter your SQL query here. You can incorporate inner joins, outer joins, or any other type of join as needed. So I'm entering the query from C_B partner C. C_B partner is the table name, and C is the alias for the table. Save the record. For this example, I'm using this simple form to demonstrate how this info window functions and how to create one. You need to tailor your SQL from query to fit your specific requirements. Now, navigate to the Info column tab to specify which columns you want to appear in the info window. To do this, click on your record. Then, enter the name of your field. For instance, C_B partner_ID. Set the reference type to ID. For the SQL select query, use C.C_B partner_ID. The reason I'm using C is because I defined the alias for the C_B partner table as C in the previous tab. The column element is C_B partner_ID. It's important to ensure that the column name matches exactly with the name in the table. Keep in mind that both column names must be identical. Now check the key column box, since this is the key column for C_B partner. In the info columns, having at least one key column is always necessary. Save the changes. Add another field, which is name. Set the reference type to string. For the SQL select query, use c.name. Save the changes. Now, navigate to the Screen Composer and select Business Partner. Refresh the screen and bind your search screen, which is VA001_BP. Then save the changes. Reset the cache and refresh the link. Next, go to the Student Master window. Under Additional Information, when you click on the search icon, you will see the info window you just created. As I click on the search icon, you can see that only two info columns appear, Business Partner ID and Name. Only these two columns are visible. We also have a Query Criteria checkbox. If I check this box and save the changes, you can add conditions to your search query. This checkbox enables searching for specific records within the info window. For instance, I'm checking the Query Criteria checkbox on the Name field. Because of this, only the Name field will be available for searching. After resetting the cache and refreshing the link, navigate to the Student Master. Now, You'll notice that the name field is visible on the left side of the info window. The Query Criteria checkbox allows you to add search functionality to the info window. You can check the Query Criteria box for any of the fields. That field will then be displayed on the left side of the info window. That's how you can create a custom info window tailored to your specific requirements. I'll show you some more info windows, such as this Business Partner info window. As you can see, the table name selected is C_B partner, and a query is included. We can observe that a left outer join is being used, and an order by clause is also present. Order by dictates the order in which the records are displayed within the info window. In the Info Column tab, you have the flexibility to add as many columns as you need. As you can see, this particular info window has 19 columns. That concludes the process of creating your own info window. That concludes this session. Thank you for attending.